You're welcome to Business Highlights on Trust TV, where I take you on a journey through some of the biggest economic and business developments of the week. My name is Chamun Dabeng, and I'll be your host. Let's talk numbers. We're opening the show with the bull and the bear on the market. The Nigerian stock market fell 0.14% or 40 billion naira in the trading week ending Friday, June 24th. Despite 4 days of positive closes to 1 day of negative closes, the market ended the week in the red, except for the NGX banking index, which rose 0.33%, and the NGX oil and gas index, which rose 0.32%. All other key sectoral indices ended the review week in the red. In the review week, the NGX Consumer Goods Index fell 2.02%, the NGX Industrial Index fell 1.89%, and the NGX Insurance Index fell 1.36%. In total, there were 4,312 deals with a volume of 156.08 million valued at 1.834 billion naira. Now, the top three gainers were Champion, John Holt, and Maybaker, up by 10, 8.62, and 8.47% respectively. And the top three losers were Livestock, Red Starex, and Unity Bank, down by 9.09, 8.64, and 8.16% respectively. Yet another week where the bear trumps the bull. Coming up next is Top Stories. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. You're welcome to Business Highlights on Trust TV. My name is Chamun Dabeng, and it's time for Top Stories. Well, now, if you recall, the national grid has collapsed several times. Now, there are areas within Abuja that are still struggling with power instability and forced to depend on generators to replace what should be either otherwise provided by the government. Joining me on the show today is education consultant and public affairs analyst Agaba Wilson. Agaba. Now, before we hear from our guests in the studio, I went into Utako Market to speak to a few shop owners. Let's take a look.
First and foremost, I'm into frozen foods, and the power supply here is consistent. Since we are into frozen food, we need consistent light. 2-4 we have light. If at all they should take out or take light, it should be other 30 or 12 hours they bring it back.
Electricity in Mr. Peter's side of the market seems to be somewhat stable. However, the case is quite different for the next shop owner, showing a clear disparity in the access to electricity.
The electric supply in this area is very poor compared with other areas. Like last week, I think it's only out of 7 days. Even per days, some days we have light 3 hours till the following day. We don't actually know the main problem. Like as of last week, about 3 days we are not having light. We had something drop. We don't know what dropped. Whether the power dropped, I don't know. Say from 3,000 to 9 megawatts. So throughout that period, there was no lights.
Despite paying high tariffs for electricity, Nigerians still deal with crippling electricity instability. Kunle Olubio, president of the Nigeria Consumer Protection Network and a former member of the Presidential Ad Hoc Committee on Review of Electricity in Nigeria, gives his perspective on the issue.
Increase in tariff is not a silver-based solution. There are a lot of challenges. For example, before August 2020, we were doing 24 naira per kilowatt hour. Now they came with what they said is contractual, service-based tariff, service-reflective tariff. Most of the people in the metropolitan area were on band A. And they promised us that it's going to be contractual. We're going to have a minimum of 24 hours of supply. Band A. Band B, they gave like 18 hours, and band C. And what have you? That led to increase in tariff.
Consistent power supply plays a major role in the economic stability of every nation as it drives up production quotas. There is a pressing need for the federal government to act quickly on the country's epileptic power supply. All right, that was that. I believe that electricity is something that all of us can relate to. Over the years, it's been the same constant issue for decades. Many of us were actually born into the system, watching Nigeria have proper unstable electricity supply within the nation. You know, there are people who come out and tell you that there's never been a point where they've had constant electricity. There has to be a moment where electricity is actually out. Now, taking a look at some of the responses or the responses that we got from that report, what do you think? Because, you know, we have one person that's saying, oh, I have electricity. And then another person is saying, I have no electricity. And this is within the same market. Now, that is a clear case of disparity. What do you think is playing into it? Why is it that we have an electricity sector that has, let me not say refused, that has not changed throughout the years?
You see, it will take me a little bit to physics. Yeah. One of Newton's law of motion, I think, is a body will continue in its state of constant rest as long as it is not impacted upon by any external force. Or a body that is moving will continue to go on a straight line at the same speed.
I like this physics explanation.
Except it is being acted upon by a force from the outside. Now, what that means is that you don't sit down, look at your situation, and hope that it improves. Mm-hmm. Things come together to make certain things happen. For instance, you couldn't have sat down and expect that the recordings you just played now should just come up on its own. You have to think it. You go out there, ask the question, come back to the studio and put work into it. Mm-hmm. I saw the guy arranging your camera and the light now, doing all he could to make sure that he gives you what he calls the top-notch production. He could have just put any camera, put the light there, and we have shadows all over the place, maybe even echo within this place. And then he will tell you he has done his production. But to make it come out better, he put in more effort. He was purposeful. He was very conscious about everything he was doing. But let's come to the power sector and the Nigerian economy generally. Have we been purposeful in what we do? Have we been consistent? Have we been insistent? And have we ensured that there's continuity? Have we put something out there and make conscious effort to monitor, evaluate, modify to ensure that it works? If you look at it in the public sector, there's no such thing. Only recently we started mouthing it, but it's not enough to say it. Mm-hmm. What are we doing to back up these things that we are thinking? Yeah, there was an arrangement between the federal government and the German company Siemens and all of that to overhaul the transmission system and the distribution system. How well that is going, I don't know. I think people in the government should be able to update us on what the company have done so far, what is still left for them to do, and what they are currently doing, so that we know. Because I know over the years, there have not been any incremental improvement in this infrastructure. So as time goes by, it's going to deteriorate. Even as humans, when we are young, we grow, we get more strength, we get more capability, we become more active. As we grow older, we become weak. And then we need people to take care of us. Have we been improving this power infrastructure? In the 1990s, our population was now up to 100 million. Today we are over 200 million. And the same infrastructure we had then, we have not added much to it. And this infrastructure are getting old. How do we expect it that as it is getting old, it should be able to take care of more people? Urbanization was not as much as it is today.
Now that insecurity has become a major issue.
So all of these things are playing into it. And at the end of the day, you don't expect to see much change if you don't put in so much. Input determines output.
All right, but even looking at the sector, there have been loans and grants that have actually been given to specifically boost the capacity of the electricity sector, of the power sector. So what happened to those loans? Is it that they were not being used, or are we just seeing corruption playing out?
Well, I'll tell you two things. Number one, I suspect misallocation and corruption. On the other part too, I suspect that we have also erred again in the idea of always throwing money at problems without properly evaluating the cause of the problem and what can be done to actually fix it for the now, the medium term, and in the long term. So we just douse tension and we go back and relax. I heard that we have an installed capacity of 11,000 megawatts generation. But then the transmission capacity is around 7,500 or so, and the distribution capacity is around 2,500 megawatts. You see, you see the disparity. So it's one thing to generate, it's another thing to transmit, it's another thing to distribute. Then there is a question of, in the now, what can we do to alleviate the problem? But this solution cannot serve forever. In the medium term, what is in the offing? And for long term, what are we doing? All of these three plans should be funded at the same time, monitored at the same time, and pushed to a logical conclusion. But most times, when we have money, we throw it at things. Nobody goes to check if the man who collects 5 naira to do something has done something of 2 nairas. Or the person who is supposed to go and check calls the man who collected the money and say, "Oga, I have not heard from you." You are not supposed to hear from him. You are supposed to go and see what he's doing. But we know what that language means. I have not heard from you. The moment I hear from you, I say you are doing well. And then we'll move on. So we see corruption is sandwiched into all of our problem. If we remove corruption, which will eliminate most people at this time anyway, because some people are almost wholly made of corruption. So if you remove them, those people are going to go down completely. But it is a necessary surgery. It's a necessary surgery that must be done. If we remove corruption, a lot of things will start picking up. It's going to drag us down a lot, but it will start picking up. And then we can have a systematic way of removing it. You can start by preventing further corruption from happening. That's not going to affect people too much, but you have put a ceiling. You have been corrupt up to this point, but from here on, you can't do it anymore. Then before we can start going back to fight some people who have done in the past and is still affecting the future and all of that. These are systematic ways that we must, and there are things that we must do. Corruption in public offices must be reduced to the barest minimum. If not, nothing will work. Not only the power sector. We are talking about health sectors and all of that.
Yeah.
I mentioned it once. In other countries, government does not build hospitals, bring laboratories, bring pharmacies and everything. Government only do specialized hospitals, the ones that are not lucrative in terms of businesses. But you have the insurance system and all of that. But where corruption thrives, you will not go and pay insurance because you know when you are sick now, insurance will not pay.
All right, so before we go on our break now, allegedly the national grid over the past 23 years has collapsed, about 16 times. Now, in order to address the power issues that the country is having, President Muhammadu Buhari announced that the federal government was moving towards decentralization of the national grid, meaning that now every single state will be in charge of their own grid. They'll be able to control it and, maintain it themselves, as opposed to everybody using, or the whole country using, one system. Now, what do you think about this? Because there are about 20,000 standalone solar systems and solar hybrid mini grids in at least 250 locations across the country. How do you think this is all going to play out at the end of the day? Do you agree with decentralizing the national grid?
I think personally that given all factors considered in this country, decentralization of the power sector would have been done long ago in order to save us. The states that are serious should be ahead of the states that are not serious. Okay? We would be driving towards true federalism, fiscal federalism and all of that. But we can start sector by sector and see how it works for us. All right? So, and today we have states that just collect the allocation from the federal government, go to sleep. And there are some states, maybe because of their previous status, they have a lot of advantages and economic activities are going on in the state and they are generating revenue. So, but then, at the end of the day, states that are serious and want to improve should not be held back because of a federal government failure or because there's the system at the federal level is too big for somebody to look at it in detail. States should be allowed to generate and distribute their own power, and so that the ones that are serious can move ahead. The ones that are not serious, let them be where they are. If their people are serious, they will vote for the right governor.
All right, we have to take a short break, and when we get back, we're going to be moving on to Story of the Week. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. You're welcome back. Once again, my name is Chamunda Beng. I'm still here with Wilson Agaba, and it's time for Story of the Week. Now, with a population of over 200 million people, with 60% of that population being youths, Nigeria is the most populous sub-Saharan nation. Now, what that means is human capital development. Now, human capital is our biggest asset, and we have so many people, we have so many strong youths that could actually play into human capital development. Now, we're going to be talking to, of course, Wilson Agaba, who is here with us. And, you know, Mr. Wilson, what would you say has been some of the challenges human capital development in Nigeria has faced?
You see, human capital development is all about empowering and improving the capability and skills of the human that you have in your country. And it is this human that drives the economy. With the right human capital, innovation can come in, productivity will increase, even unemployment will reduce, and most of the national challenges we are talking about today will be to the barest minimum. Now, but if you look at it, like we talked about in the power sector, have we had a purposeful drive towards matching our human capital with the time that we are in? If you look at today, go to many of our schools, they are still using the curriculum that they used in the 1960s, in the 70s. In fact, a friend told me jokingly the other day, and then he told me that he meant it, that his lecturer who taught the firstborn in their family, who is about 30-something years older than him, taught him with the same note that he used in teaching that his elder brother. And I want to ask, 30 years ago, the requirement in the labor market, is it the same as today? The answer is no. Most time we sit down and we talk about unemployment, and I say the problem is not unemployment. We have problem of unemployability.
All right, so we'll take a look at this report here. We do have Shubham Chowdhury of the World Bank and also the Vice President Yemi Osibanjo, and they're both speaking on human capital development within the country. And when we get back, we're going to discuss a little more about unemployability and, of course, once again, the Nigerian curriculum and the educational system. There is a need to take a look at public schools, especially, and see what they are lacking. All right, so let's take a look at it. Nigeria has a population of over 200 million citizens, making it the most populous in the sub-Saharan region. With a youth population of over 60%, an investment in human capital has the potential of turning around the fortunes of the country. However, issues of insecurity, gender parity, lack of investment in critical sectors, and millions of out-of-school children have continued to hamper its growth.
Capital, which basically means investing in people, in the children, young youth, women and girls of Nigeria and of the region, the West Africa region. The World Bank, and not just here in Nigeria, but across the region, is incredibly committed to this agenda. The states are on the front lines, states and local governments are on the front lines of this, and it's really about how does the federal and the state work together. At the federal level and at the state level, there's also the issue of how do you mobilize the revenues. At the end of the day, it will take public resources to invest in human capital.
Also at the event was the Vice President of Nigeria, Yemi Osibajo, who spoke on the importance of human capital development in Nigeria.
The most important pieces of work that we can do are on planning and investing in human capital development, healthcare, nutrition, quality education, skills and jobs. Our most important targets and objectives, nationally and regionally, must be on the improvement of the quality of lives, living standards, and livelihoods of our people, the happiness, security, and general welfare of our populations. Clearly, nothing else is as important. Now we have our strategy documents, but we are in a race against time. We are locked in a mortal battle with difficult local and global macroeconomic and fiscal circumstances, even as states, regions face deadly civil conflicts and terrorism.
The launch of the ECOWAS development strategy is seen as a catalyst to initiatives geared towards improving the standard of living among member nations. All right, so what do you think about the comments that came from Shubham Chowdhury and also the Vice President?
Yeah, you see, I think they are all saying the same thing as I started with. We need to look at the current challenges of the country. What are the challenges we are facing? We just mentioned power sector. We're talking about our electoral system. We are talking about transportation. We are talking about housing. We are talking, have we sat down to say, one, how do we get the people that can profile this solution? Our school system is designed and supposed to equip us to be able to contribute positively to the society in which we live. So have we sat down to say, okay, let's draft a curriculum that builds people with the skills and capability to solve this problem? And let's fund the institution with the right infrastructure and with the right human resources that will build these people. And we integrate these people. So this institution is there and we say, this department is civil engineering or whatever it is. And we say, your job, find the solution to Nigerian housing problem, road construction problem. And we can say, your institution is to focus on aviation. Find the problem to Nigeria aviation.
So is it more like winnowing down specific roles to specific people?
Exactly. We need to focus on solving our problem, not going to school for going to school's sake. Our labor that we generate from the school system should be tailored towards solving our immediate problem. We should not be building people for another country. You see, we train a lot of doctors and they leave this country.
The issue of
because we have not integrated them into the system. When they go to the school, we have not made them see that you are here because of this problem. And the person who have gone to the school to apply themselves, corruption come and wait for him at the gate. And that person comes out and they say, well, before you can work in this place, you need to know somebody who knows somebody. So these are all issues that we need to fix. If we don't fix this thing, we cannot compete with any other country in this century and even in the next century.
All right, so actually sitting down and listening to the strategy launch from ECOWAS, going into some of the challenges that the country is facing as far as human capital development is concerned, one thing that kept on replaying was the issue of gender parity. Now, what are your thoughts on gender parity within the country and getting more young female students out there in school and, going for the hardest, the harder topics or subjects, should I say? We're trying to push STEM for young women and girls. How would you say that has fared within the country and also specifically within the northern region, which of course we know what the issue with gender parity is within those regions, and we also know, the amount of students who are out of school within those regions?
I think that the culture of the people and the religion of our people have played into this for too long. But the truth is that the reality stares us in the face. We have a lot of homes where they have lost their father, and then, of course, because the father who was the breadwinner is no more, you have a mother who was never empowered, and then she becomes hopeless. The children are begging, and they become open to criminals, to recruit and all of that. So I think that more should be, a lot of activities are actually going on. I have spoken with a few clients who are into such things in the North. They are promoting gender parity, they are promoting girl child education. There are a lot of funds out there. But I think the government should be more purposive about it, and they should drive it harder and on a larger scale. It's better to, it helps a nation if the female population are well educated.
Well, it seems that the catchword for today is purposeful, being very intentional about the actions, especially coming from the federal government, because it's very glaring the way each sector or the way each issue ties into the next. So each needs to be broken down, like our guest said, and focused on to solve problems that we have. All right, so we've come to the end of our show for today, and I would like to thank my guests in the studio. Thank you so much, Mr. Wilson, for being a part of the show. And to you, our viewer, thank you so much for watching. Please do well to follow us on all our social media platforms. You can find us on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, you name it. I'm pretty sure we're there. Just look up at Trust TV News. Well, once again, my name is Chamun Dabeng. Please do come back again next weekend so we can talk some more numbers. Thank you.